Solo in Seattle, Season 1, Episode 8. I want to start off by thanking you guys for following my initial journey back in January when I front loaded a ton of series, and it allowed me to heal from a breakup that I was traveling through for years. And through those episodes, a few times, it triggered me. It brought up a lot of memories, discussions, misunderstandings, misfires, miscommunication. And I had to take a break. I had to step away and I had to find myself again. I had to center myself because I wasn't coming from a place of clarity. I was coming from a place of being clouded, confused, and guilt. So this episode is going to be about guilt because I recently took a 10-day trip to Thailand, and it was surrounded by guilt. It was surrounded by the guilt of leaving my son behind, surrounded by the guilt of leaving my father behind, both of which I've had the luxury of being able to, obviously my son cared for 18 years. I've been his only parent. I did have help for 8 of those years, or 8.5 of those years if we're trying to be exact. But once me and that person decided to exit from each other's lives, a lot of things changed. I still have the freedom to come and go as I please, do what I need to do, because I do have a brother who lives in the area that can support me. I have friends who show up and, step up to see about my son, parents. So I'm never truly alone, never truly made to feel like a single parent. But it wasn't until this trip to Thailand where I felt this immense amount of guilt. Was I doing the right thing? Should I cancel my trip? I've been dealing with a father who is, older in age, and he's had several complications with his health, several hospitalizations. But at this time, I made the decision to take my vacation. I made the decision to live my life. I made my decision to not have guilt. Some of this may resonate with you guys. As females, as daughters, as wives, as long-term partners, as girlfriends, as head of households, boss babes, breadwinners, we're expected to perform. We're expected to show up. We're expected to be there. But how many times has someone been there for you? How many times have you needed something or someone, but you did not want to burden them with the ask? This episode is about guilt. Through my whole life, I have been guilted. I have been guilted into doing so many things. But taking this trip to Thailand for 10 days was non-negotiable. It allowed me 10 beautiful days of peace. It allowed me 10 beautiful days of relaxation, 10 days of not having to be responsible for anything or anyone but myself. Guess what? My dad was just fine. I talked to him every morning. My son was just fine. He continued to be late to school. He continued to be absent. He has senioritis, by the way. I'm not giving him a pass. But if you have a child that is a senior in high school, and if you remember your senior year, yeah, whatever. Just get there when you get there. Make it through the day. You have a whole future ahead of you. Just graduate. That's all I'm asking. But for 10 days, I had a few conversations with some of the people that I joined in activities with and kind of ran it by them about, how they think that I handled the situation. Do they think that it was appropriate for me to go on vacation? Did I make the right choice? Was I being selfish? All of those things. And the consensus said no. Because at some point, you have to start living for you. I have dedicated my whole life to serving others. I have dedicated my whole life to being there for somebody else. And it wasn't until I ended my relationship, or maybe he ended it. I don't even remember or care. Crazy how you go through almost a decade with somebody and you don't even really remember. I was telling my friend this the other day. I don't even remember hardly what he looks like, smells like, feels like, tastes like. How does that happen? How can you go every day seeing somebody for almost a decade to they literally disappear, dissolve into the air? And I'm not saying that I don't know him. I don't know who he is. I wouldn't recognize him if I saw him. I'm just saying, or maybe I don't remember who I thought he was, because who he showed up as in the end destroyed any credibility he ever had with me. Guilt. The guilt that I feel for playing along for years. We used each other. It was transactional. It was transitional. Was it pure and honest? I don't know. Definitely was beneficial. But being able to go on this trip to Thailand, out of the country, with my friend, was the most liberating experience of my adult life. Being able to not feel anything but pure joy and happiness, freedom for once in my life. And when I came back, my dad checked in with me, checked in on me, as he always does. And he was so proud that I did this for myself. My son saw me and he was so proud. I did this for myself. It is so hard as a woman, a strong woman, to do something for themselves because of guilt, because of what we assume is our responsibility. But our responsibility is only to ourselves. You only need to show up for you, because if you're not good, no one around you is going to be good. And it's not fair to yourself to overexert your time, to overextend yourself. And I've lied to myself for months, years. Oh, just give yourself grace. You can handle it. You got this. No, I don't. I don't want it. I don't want to have it. I don't want to have to be expected to perform. No, why can't I just show up and deal with it? And that's how I'm going to carry things moving forward. I'm just going to show up. I'm just going to do it. Because 10 days went right on by and nothing changed. Everything was just as I left it. There were no major incidents. There were no major harmful things that happened. Actually, a few things were resolved on their own without my input. So, this is for the girlies who carry everything on their backs. This is for the girlies who hold it down, that don't know how to manage their time because they're overextended. You have way too much on your plate. How they like to say, you're doing too much. And on the outside looking in, I'm sure it appears that I also am doing too much, but I'm actually living. Trust me and believe me. I am living my goddamn life with no relationships, with no one to answer to, because I choose me. I will always choose me. Because there's no more episodes of guilt. Am I a shitty daughter? Was I a shitty girlfriend? Probably. You know, my shitty mother, sister, daughter, wife. I don't really care about that either. You know, there's just so many things that don't matter. And guilt is one of those things. Guilt does not matter. It's a facade. It's someone else's emotions being pushed onto you. And at the end, what does it do for anyone? Nothing. Because here I am, sun-kissed, unbothered, not guilty. Although the majority of my life has been led by that guilt. I remember I got pregnant with my son, and I knew when I got pregnant. When and where. And I told his dumbass dad, I was like, I'm pregnant, you know. And he told me, you know, I'm not ready to be a father. And I'm like, all right, well, it's too late now. Past a certain point where there could have been options. Stupid. Anyways, in disclosure, I'm not for or against whatever you got going on with your body. So don't come for me. I kept my baby. He's 18 now. All is well. Anyways, and then somehow I was guilted into marrying this dodo bird because nobody was going to want me with the baby. Oh my God. Single mothers, statistics, all of these false ideals that people in society subscribe to, these labels. So I was like, well, I guess I have to marry him so we can all have the same last name, which I still, 20 years later, have the same last name. On all of my accolades, licensure, certificates, degrees, there's a lot. My last name is the same as Donovan's dad's. Still. And it rubs me the wrong way. Anyways. So I was guilted into marrying this dodo bird because I thought that nobody was going to want me with the baby. He was the best I could do. And he wouldn't shit. He was the love of my life, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. But in the grand scheme of things, he was not, and is still not, the option. So anyways, 10 years roll by of faking it till you make it. I leave him, and I go to Texas, and I start my life over. File for divorce. Then I meet this other dodo bird, complete psycho. And somebody I knew from middle school that ran into me at a birthday party for a kid, for a coworker. And I dealt with this complete psychopath for like 9 months. And that's what led me to move to Seattle. So I did get some inbox questions in the beginning of my podcast, and they were asking, you didn't really tie into why you moved to Seattle. 2 parts. One was to get away from this psycho, and the second part was to go to law school. One of those 2 were successful. So anyways, it wasn't like a domestic violence situation. It was just a situation where he just had too much going on. He was a little too interested. He just did not leave me alone. So I sold all of my stuff and I just left one day randomly. Broke my lease and I dipped. Caught a one-way flight to Seattle. Those who actually know me know I did that. 2 suitcases, moved to Seattle. My brother came with me, furnished my whole apartment, started my life over. I got waitlisted for law school, got denied admission, started working for the job that I'm currently in that's dead end, and fast forward another 10 years. Met another dodo bird, this time on a dating app, because I saw my girlfriends going on all these dates, and it looked so much fun. This was 10 years ago, by the way. And I see this guy on this dating app, and he has these little glasses on, and he's in a music studio, and he looks real nerdy. So I'm like, yes, him. He looks like somebody I would never talk to in my whole life. So I'm going to try something completely different. So whichever way you swipe, right? It was Tinder, okay? Don't judge me. 10 years ago, I don't think it was the same Tinder as it is today. We matched. I ignored him for 2 weeks because I was like, God, I can't really convince myself to go out with this kind of guy. Because I'm used to a totally different kind of guy. Tall, handsome, swagged out, deep pockets, all that. This guy, medium height. At the time, I think he was athletic build. I don't really remember. It's been a really long time. And he was like average, right? Nothing to look at, nothing to not look at. I laugh because I got the Temu version of this dude. Like who he ended as is not who he began as. Okay? I'm going to tie this into the guilt. But I just had to say that. So anyways, I meet this rando on this dating app. He comes and picks me up for a date. And I'm like, "Oh god." Just stay the course, Amanda. He looks safe. So we meet. We actually hit it off. He's a super nice guy. Hella corny, but super nice. And from the first day that we met, we were inseparable. Homie vibes for sure. We dated for about 6 months or so. His lease was ending. My lease was ending. So we made the decision, well, since you're here all the time, let's just go ahead and move in together. Yes, I know, in hindsight, too soon. But it was beneficial. Remember that, okay? So, we go through this whirlwind of, years together, get into a routine. Then I get into graduate school. And I don't know how many of you have had to make the choice between work, school, and family. I didn't have a choice because I've always been a breadwinner. I felt it was my responsibility to maintain my household. So I chose to work 40 hours. I chose to go to school full time. I chose to put my home life on the back burner, specifically my relationship. And I hold a lot of guilt for that I should not have done things in a certain way. But to be completely honest and transparent, I saw my exit route. I saw my exit strategy early on. And I knew he was not my person. I knew I stayed out of guilt because he helped me for years with my son. Him and my son had a relationship, and I felt guilty because my son never really had a dad, quote unquote, right? And there was this person that he bonded with. So I stayed because I thought, again, much like my marriage, it was the right thing to do. It wasn't. And there were moments I truly loved him and cared about him because I am a human. But I could just never get past those initial icks. And then I started telling him his icks every day. Towards the end, I was just done. And then all of a sudden he morphed into a Instagram rapper or something. I don't know. He went out and bought a new car and got this whole new image, and I was like, "Oh, cool." I guess, whatever you want to do. Mind you, we had a lack of intimacy for 2 years at this point. 2 trains passing in the night, roommates, dap up the homie, no hugs, no kisses, see you when I see you. Yeah, it was dumb as shit. I don't know why either one of us stayed, other than it was transactional. It was beneficial. It was dead, y'all. Dead as a doorknob. And because I've healed from the traumas of my life, of my past, and I've accepted that me and this person are not friends, will not be friends, and literally the day that I closed the door on him was the last time I saw or spoke to him. No contact whatsoever. And that's probably the best thing you could ever do in a relationship is no contact. Anyways, guilt. When I closed that door, the guilt of blame placing, taking responsibility. What did I do wrong? How did I do this? How did I do that? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? And so many people were like, why are you blaming yourself? And I would say, well, it's the guilt of this, it's the guilt of that. You know, for far too long, I did this, he did that. But the reality was we had fallen out of love years ago, but we were loyal. And it wasn't until a series of incidents of disrespect that I was like, nah, playa. I had to remember who I was. Like, you're not gonna, yeah, it's not gonna work. Not at this address. You can go find you some little super dummy, you know. But anyway, good luck with that. This podcast is about choosing yourself. I will always choose myself. And after a series of revelations, of trips, of independence, of being completely alone, I have resolved all kinds of issues of guilt and realized that none of this is my burden. I didn't deserve a lot of the things that happened, and I'm not victimizing myself, and I'm not villainizing anyone else. It truly is what it is, how they say. Sometimes things are so abundantly clear when you remove yourself from the situations. For example, I went to Thailand for 10 days. And I didn't think once about my ex, what happened in our relationship, the responsibilities of home, my dad and decisions that need to be made towards him and his livelihood, my son's senior year. Was I doing the right thing? Absolutely, I was. I'm living for myself. Because if I don't, then resentment can set in. And once resentment sets in, that's a wrath you can't untangle. But I just want you guys to think about, if you are in a place where you feel guilt, start writing down why. Why do you feel guilty? Who is making you feel guilty? Is it your own negative self-thought? Is it your collaterals? Is it someone who's overextended and you've created a boundary and they don't like that boundary? Because I can almost guarantee you that when you realize that nonsensical guilt that you feel is not real, and that life does continue on after, look at yourself in the mirror and remind yourself, I love me. I choose me. Put yourself first. Because if you don't, I can assure you, no one else will. This podcast, Solo in Seattle, episode 8, is about guilt. It's also about sharing with you a little bit about me, my life, my ups, my downs, and keeping it real. And looping you into a podcast that is not scripted, that is raw and unedited. And if you have any questions for me, or you have any topics you want me to address, feel free to send them my way. And as always, thank you for listening.